Hi everyone and welcome back to the YouTube channel. So today we are going to talk about what a sustainable caseload actually looks like. So many therapists think that the goal is simply to have a full caseload, and of course it makes sense. But if you are in a private practice, then you need enough clients to make your work financially viable. You need consistent inquiries, you need stability, you need to know that your practice can actually support you. But there is also something that doesn't get spoken about enough. And it's the case that a full caseload is not always the same thing as a sustainable caseload through time. So you can have many clients and still feel constantly behind. You can have enough sessions and still feel anxious about cancellations, admin, notes, email, supervision, room hire, content, fees, and all the invisible work around your clinical work. You can look successful from the outside and still feel that your practice is quietly becoming too heavy. So in this video, I really want to talk about what a sustainable caseload actually looks like in practice. So not just a full practice, not just a busy diary, but a caseload that supports your income, protects your energy, respects your clinical work, and still allows you to feel like a human being. So the first mistake many therapists make is that they think growth starts with demand. They ask themselves, how do I get more inquiries? How do I get more clients? How do I become more visible? And those questions really matter, but they are not the first questions, because the first question is this: what can your practice actually hold? Because if you grow without understanding your real capacity, more clients can quickly become more pressure in your private practice. So your capacity is not only the number of sessions you can technically fit into your diary, but it also includes the emotional energy required for the work. It includes note writing, admin, inquiry replies, supervision, breaks between sessions, your ability to be present, thoughtful, and clinically safe as well. So a sustainable caseload begins with honesty. Not how many clients could I force into my week, but how many clients can I hold well consistently without slowly damaging the quality of my work or my well-being. So that answer will be different for every therapist. And that is why copying someone else's number is not very useful, because for one therapist, sustainability may be 12 clients per week, and for another therapist, it may be 18. For another, it may be fewer clients at a higher fee with more space for supervision, writing, family life, or other professional responsibilities. So the point here is not to find the biggest number, it's really to find the number your practice can actually sustain in the long run. So a sustainable caseload is not only emotionally sustainable, but it has to be also financially sustainable. And this is where many therapists feel uncomfortable, because talking about fees can bring up guilt, fear, and the feeling that money somehow contaminates the care that you provide in your work. But in private practice, unclear money creates pressure. If your fee is too low for your real costs, then you may need to see more clients than your body, mind, and life can realistically hold. If your cancellation policy is unclear, then you may absorb the financial impact of late changes again and again. If you do not know your monthly income needs, your caseload may always feel slightly anxious even when you are very busy. So a sustainable caseload asks practical questions. How much income does the practice need to generate? How many sessions do you need and that require at your current fee? How many cancellations can you realistically absorb? How much unpaid work happens around each client? Does your current caseload model allow you to do this work well without resentment, overextension, or constant financial stress? So that is not about becoming cold, but it is really about being honest towards yourself. Because when the financial structure is unclear, then the therapist often pays the price through overworking, undercharging, and quietly carrying more pressure than the client ever sees, leading to burning out. So a sustainable caseload also needs strong boundaries, not harsh, not cold, but clear boundaries. Because without them, then the caseload doesn't only live inside the session, but it will start spreading everywhere, into evenings, into weekends, into your inbox, into your thoughts, into the spaces where your nervous system is supposed to recover into your personal life. So that is why a sustainable practice needs clear decisions around contact, admin, response time, cancellations, fees, session times, and between session communication. Again, that is not about caring less about your clients, but it is really about creating a system that allows you to keep caring without becoming overwhelmed, without becoming depleted. Because many of you don't burn out only because of the number of clients, but you burn out because everything around the clients is undefined, and there are many and many different things around your clinical work. So every inquiry becomes a decision. Every late cancellation becomes an emotional negotiation. Every fee conversation feels improvised. Every email can feel urgent. Every boundary has to be recreated from scratch. So that is exhausting, and that is something that will lead to burnout. So a sustainable caseload is really supported by your practice structure, a practice system that reduces unnecessary ambiguity. So the therapist doesn't have to rely on willpower, guilt, or last-minute decision-making every week. So it's really the importance of having systems so that you don't need to practice guesswork and to feel overwhelmed every time you have something to do, because you always begin from scratch. So it's really important to have systems in place so that the decision making part of your practice, of your private practice, is really as low as possible. So this may be obvious, but it is also very important to remind yourself of it. A sustainable caseload leaves room for you to actually be a therapist, not just a session provider, not just a person moving from one call to the next, not just someone trying to fit the emotional complexity of therapy into a calendar that has no breathing space. Therapy requires presence, as you know. It requires thought, reflection, supervision, ethical attention, and a lot of your energy. And it requires also the therapist to be resourced enough to meet the work with care. So if your diary is technically full, but you have no time to think, no time to write notes properly, no time to recover, no time to manage the business side of your private practice, and no space for your own life, then that is not a sustainable caseload. That is a fragile system that will not work in the long run. So it may work for a while, but eventually the cost will appear somewhere sooner or later. So it may appear as tiredness, it may appear as resentment, as avoidance, as weaker boundaries, as dread before the week begins. So a sustainable caseload should help you feel professionally grounded and not permanently stretched. So let's talk really about the real goal of your private practice. So when we talk about growing your therapy practice, I do not think that the best question is simply how do I get more clients? But a better and appropriate question would be how do I build a practice that I can keep holding? Because growth that breaks your boundaries is not really growth. Growth that creates constant pressure is not really visibility, stability. And a full diary that leaves you emotionally depleted is not the kind of success that most therapists actually want. So a sustainable caseload is really one where the number of clients, the fee structure, the admin load, the boundaries, the inquiry process, and the weekly regime all work together. So it is not perfect, it doesn't remove every difficult week, but it gives the practice a system that can support both the clients and you as well. So that's really something that matters, because therapists do not just need more visibility. You also need visibility that leads to the right kind of work held inside a practice that protects your energy, your ethics, your time, and your ability to keep doing good clinical work. So if your practice is busy but still feels too heavy, then the answer may not be to simply push harder, but it may be to redesign the way your caseload is being held.